Welcome to The Ride Inside with Mark Barnes, a podcast about the mental, emotional, and social aspects of motorcycling, brought to you by the BMW Motorcycle Owners of America and the MOA Foundation. Mark Barnes is a clinical psychologist and motojournalist with decades of experience in both fields. But nothing in this podcast should be considered a way to diagnose or treat mental illness. We're all just trying to get through this thing called life, and motorcycles are one of the ways we do it. If you're in a crisis, or ride a KTM, please seek professional help. We'd love to answer your questions too, so send them to podcast@bmwmoa.org.
Welcome to The Ride Inside. I'm Mark Barnes, and this essay is entitled, Not What You Think. I just returned from a ride with an odd goal: find rain. I was trying to test the weatherproofing of Aerostitch's Transit 3 leather suit, which incorporates a unique combination of non-absorbent leather and a one-way, water-permeable membrane to keep rain out while allowing water vapor to escape from inside. Although I could see multiple showers in the distance, and on my Garmin Zumo XT's handy live weather map, I was never able to catch up with one. Of course, had I been trying to avoid them, each one would have chased me down and taken its turn soaking me. Although my intended mission remained unaccomplished, I unexpectedly succeeded at another. I learned how the Transit 3 worked in the hottest, most humid weather since I acquired it in early spring. Back when temps were cool and the air was dry, its comfort was impressive. This wasn't surprising, given its high-quality materials, design, and craftsmanship. But I've been wearing synthetic textile gear almost exclusively for many years, with all my old leather jackets and suits collecting dust, along with my memories of roasting inside them, soaked in sweat during summer rides, even when the leather was perforated. Once they became available, textile replacements with extensive venting or mesh panels were a most welcome relief, and I've rarely donned leather since making the switch. So despite Aerostitch's claims about the Transit 3 being an all-weather option, and my long-standing regard for the company's products, I was skeptical about using it through the worst of summer in the southeast, where temperatures and humidity typically hover together in the upper 90s. Things aren't quite that bad here yet, so it remains to be seen how the Transit will feel in more extreme conditions. But my outing saw dash thermometer readings approaching 90, and with all those pockets of rain around me, the atmosphere was dreadfully muggy. The Transit 3's leather is perforated, but allows no ingress of fresh air except through its relatively limited underarm and upper back zippered vents. Those perforations only allow the waterproof, windproof membrane to pass moist vapor to the suit's exterior. I would not have guessed this could produce much of an evaporative cooling effect, and, indeed, it's certainly not on par with a well-ventilated or mesh garment. However, I repeatedly noticed I wasn't as sweaty and hot as I had expected. Aerostitch also claims the special dyes used in this suit reflect more radiant heat than those used in conventional leather. I can't vouch for this in any objectively measurable sense, but again, I noticed less impact than anticipated from the sun beating down on me between cloudy areas. I clearly recall similar conditions generating a lot of misery when wearing leather kit in years past, especially during the initial transition into hot weather when I hadn't yet acclimated to the seasonal change, as is currently the case. It seems the Transit 3 actually does deliver significantly greater comfort than conventional leather as the mercury and humidity climb. I wouldn't have believed this possible, and therefore I also wouldn't have considered purchasing a Transit 3, regardless of the catalog's description. My view changed only because Aerostitch generously provided a sample for evaluation. This column isn't meant to be a review of the Transit 3. Rather, I'm trying to illustrate how things we think we know can prove quite inaccurate when tested. Only the most grandiose narcissist explicitly insists they're never wrong about anything. But we all believe our own opinions and expectations as though we're implicitly infallible. It's just that some of us can occasionally take a more humble and accepting stance when evidence comes into the contrary. It's important to deliberately maintain a bit of doubt about our own perspectives, leaving room for new information to continually improve the accuracy and comprehensiveness of our views. For better or for worse, feelings are not facts, nor are ideas. Our thoughts and emotions almost always have some validity on the basis of our individual histories. They don't just come out of nowhere, but they can become obsolete as our situations and selves change. Much damage and distress is a result of misapplying the past to the present. For example, the way I learn to relate to others in my family of origin may be way out of step with how I need to relate to at least some of the folks in my present circle of friends and coworkers. Whether we're talking about leather riding suits or interpersonal dynamics, things can change a great deal over time and from one setting to another. We ignore the need for updating our understanding at our own peril. Others we care about may suffer negative consequences from our rigidity as well. When I work with couples, one of the most common problems I encounter is a lack of curiosity. Each partner has become convinced they know all there is to know about the other one, and they work off the static models they've established in their minds as they interpret and react to each other. This is also almost always the case between parents and their children. The truth is, no one is ever completely known by another person. We're all way too complex and elaborate for this to ever be possible, and even if we were to be fully known one day, there would be new things to learn the next day about our experiences, thoughts, and feelings since the previous assessment. I don't mean partners are all wrong about each other, but those fixed models can contain plenty of inaccuracies, omissions, and outdated concepts that lead to seriously problematic misunderstandings. Much of couples therapy involves facilitating renewed exploration and discovery. Whereas this was what made the early stages of the relationship exciting, it eventually became intolerably stressful as one or both individuals reached a point where they didn't really want to reveal any more about themselves or find out potentially disappointing or disturbing things about their partner. Curiosity got shut down to avoid anxiety, grief, or the need to adjust, and as a result, the relationship became stale and calcified. The partners no longer queried each other about how they saw or felt about things, and instead assumed and speculated on the basis of those old models, often in spite of new or different information their partner tried to present. This made their relationship problems unsolvable. Something similar happens in the garage. If I'm troubleshooting with a closed mind, thinking such and such must be what's wrong, or something else can't possibly be the cause, I'm likely to miss clues that would lead me to a more accurate and useful appraisal. I've spent far too many hours tracking down gremlins that didn't exist after overlooking extremely simple and obvious fixes. Always check the kill switch first, no matter how certain you are you haven't touched it since the last ride. Even when I didn't miss something basic, gaps in my knowledge have caused me to leave out certain paths of inquiry, eventually considered only after ruling out everything else or consulting someone with more sophisticated understanding. Had I realized the existence of such connections at the outset, I might have started with them and saved myself a tremendous amount of time, effort, and consternation. There's a counter-argument to be made here. We can't go through every activity of every day without making any assumptions, or we'd never get anything done. I'm not going to go through some systematic test of my office chair's weight-bearing capacity prior to each time I want to sit in it. The ability to assume is a big part of what makes memory an invaluable necessity in daily living, and we're right to take a multitude of things for granted. Our experiential histories allow us to make countless accurate predictions about what will likely happen in the future and judge which actions will yield the desired outcome. The problem isn't so much our tendency to assume, it's how we often take our assumptions too seriously, foreclosing on the opportunity to learn when faced with a challenge. Assumptions must be made, but we ought to hold them loosely. We need the flexibility to shift into scientist mode quickly when our assumptions don't fit the emerging evidence. Forming new hypotheses and testing them in logical, methodical ways is the foundation of all scientific knowledge. Yet even the most rigorous and earnest scientist is vulnerable to a basic principle of human nature. Instead of believing what we see, the scientific ideal, we tend to see what we already believe. We have to deliberately push against this tendency if we're going to pry open space for new information at variance with our preconceived notions. And we need other people who can see things from different vantage points to help us notice our own blind spots. By definition, these cannot be discovered solo. This all takes real work and a great deal of humility. On one hand, the human mind is unfathomably intricate and capable of astonishing feats, not just during moments of genius, but throughout mundane existence. It's impossible to inventory all the stuff it manages, moment by moment, during a routine day. On the other hand, any particular mind's processing can be profoundly constrained and distorted by its own idiosyncratic history of experience. Also, we can err in both directions. We might take our past experiences so seriously we're unable to appreciate anything new. Or we can not take our past experiences seriously enough and continue making the same mistakes going forward. There's no way to set it and forget it. Maintaining a reasonably successful life requires ongoing reevaluation of our own perspectives. To make this even more complicated, we can't even be fully aware of ourselves, given the inevitable presence of blind spots and underlying layers of processing of which we may have little or no conscious awareness. Learning never ends, or at least it shouldn't. Thanks for the reminder, Arrowstitch.
The BMW MOA Foundation is a 501(c) nonprofit dedicated to improving rider safety by providing programs supporting motorcycling and its rich heritage. The Foundation's mission is built to provide and promote programs for first-time riders, with an emphasis on youth, women, and families, and to support a variety of educational and training programs related to safe motorcycling. The Foundation has two prominent programs, the Paul B. Scholarship and Safe Miles. The Paul B. Memorial Scholarship Fund honors the memory of Paul Bayshores, an avid motorcyclist with a big heart and a love for his BMW riding community. The Paul B. Scholarship awards grants to individuals in the motorcycle riding community to help them pursue rider education and training. MOA members can receive up to a $250 grant for successfully completing any sanctioned motorcycle training course. Anyone who is not an MOA member can receive up to $100. Once you've scheduled and paid for your approved training course, submit your application to paulb@bmwmoaf.org. It's important to note the application must be submitted before the training course is completed. The MOA Foundation's Safe Miles program is in the process of establishing a $1 million endowment to fund the future of rider safety, education, and training. Donors to the Safe Miles endowment receive special benefits like a 1-year renewal of their MOA membership, automatic entries to Foundation raffles, a donor dinner at the National Rally, a Foundation polo shirt, and more. Learn more and make your donation to the Foundation now by visiting the Foundation's website at bmwmoaf.org and clicking on Safe Miles. We'd love to answer your questions too, so send them to podcast@bmwmoa.org. Visit our website at therideinside.com to listen to every episode of the podcast and read more of Mark's writing on various motorcycle-related topics. The best way to support The Ride Inside is by joining the BMW Motorcycle Owners of America. Yes, it says BMW right in the name, but we absolutely do not care what bike you ride. We know what's most important. The MOA is all about the community of riders, not a single brand. You can join as a digital member for $39 a year, or as a traditional member for $49 a year. The biggest difference is digital members don't get a hard copy of the monthly magazine in their mailbox. They access the BMW Owners News online. Each membership supports digital offerings like the Ride Inside, as well as everything else the MOA does. Find out more at bmwmoa.org. Ride along with us on the internet. The MOA and all its digital productions are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll see you out there somewhere on the road, or off it. Ride safe.